All right, welcome everyone to the final genealogy class in our spring series. I'm popping a link right now in the chat to the handout. The chat is open, so if you want to go in there and say hi, let us know where you're joining us from. That'd be great. If you have any questions, we will have plenty of time after my presentation. I will be able to take questions. Also, this class is being recorded, and I will be sending a link to everyone. Once it is ready, it'll be up on our YouTube channel, hopefully sometime next week. I'll also be sending a follow-up email to everyone tomorrow, which will have a link to the handout, a link to my slides, and also a link to the chat transcript. So if you miss something, don't worry, you'll be able to get it. We just have one more order of business before we continue. We acknowledge that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem, providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people. It is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning. Deliberations and public engagement will take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. So glad to see we got a lot of people from Massachusetts. That is great. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, if this is your first time joining us, I'm Jessie Wheeler. I'm the genealogy specialist here at the Boston Public Library, and I work in the Research Services Department, which is at the Central Library in Copley Square. So what we are covering today, the topic today is online databases that you can access through the BPL and also some other free websites. So because we are in Massachusetts and in Boston, I will be focusing on resources you can get through the BPL. If you're joining us from another state, you check with your local library. They might also have the resources that I'm going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about three of the bigger databases that we have here, which is Ancestry Library Edition, American Ancestors, and My Heritage. But we're going to talk about, we're going to briefly go over some other databases that may be useful that you can also get through the BPL and some other free resources that you can check out. So first off is Ancestry Library Edition, which is the big one. We have folks who will use it literally all day. They'll come in and they'll just be on there all day looking at it. It is, for those of you who don't know, it is one of, if not the biggest genealogy database in the world currently. They have lots of different collections. They are always updating it. So they have millions of records that cover the entire world. However, I will say they do tend to focus more so on English-speaking countries and countries in Western Europe. So that's going to be a lot from North America, particularly, the US and Canada, the United Kingdom, and France and Germany. They have pretty good collections. There are other places that's less strong, but like I said, they're always updating constantly. So if you're looking for something in there, and it's not there, just keep checking for it. Chances are it might show up there eventually. So just a few of the different types of records it has are vital records, which would be birth, death, and marriage records. Census records is one of the several places you can get to those online. They'll have immigration records like passenger listings and naturalization record, and they also have naturalization records and things like that. City directories, they'll have some yearbooks, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for them. So the caveat with this, though, is if you want to use the BPL's subscription, you will need to come in physically to a BPL location. It's not available for remote access. It was available remotely during the COVID lockdown period, which was something they did for a lot of public libraries, but that period has sadly ended. So you would need to, if you need to use our subscription, you would have to come here. So we are going to take a look at that in a little bit. First, I just want to tell you some tips. Like I said, it's constantly being updated, so keep checking back there. And this next thing is generally true for doing research anywhere, especially online. Be aware of any possible name variations for the person that you are looking for. For instance, someone may not have you might have a relative who didn't go by their legal name. For example, I have a great aunt that I always knew as Claire. When the 1940 census was released, and I found the family in the 1940 census records in Ancestry.com, and I found my grandfather, found my other great aunts and uncles, and also my great grandparents, but there was a name there that did not look familiar to me. It was Mary. So I asked my mom, I asked her, was Aunt Claire's first name actually Mary? And she said yes. I had only known her as Claire. She went by Claire everywhere as far as I know, but in the census record, she's in there as Mary. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, particularly if you, like me, come from a large Catholic family with lots of Marys who might have gone by their middle name. And on the topic of women, they can be particularly tricky. So if you're looking for a woman who is married, you would probably want to try her married name and her maiden name. And also if you're looking for an unmarried woman, and just try every possible name that you can think of. This can get a little tricky if you're researching someone who was married multiple times. I was once helping someone with a research question, and this particular woman had been married, I believe, 5 times. And also she went by various different first names. She went by her first name, her middle name, another name that I think might have been her confirmation name, and then a nickname. So she was really, really hard to track down. It was, I did eventually find what the patron was looking for, but it took me a while. So if you just can't find someone, no matter which version of the name you try searching someone who was close to them. So anyone that they might have been living with or associated with, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, a child. You can try looking for those folks. My favorite example for this is, again, from the 1940 census. I thought of me being a science fiction nerd, I thought I'd try to find Leonard Nimoy. Couldn't find him. Tried every variation of the name I could think of, but I couldn't find him. So I looked up what the name of his brother was. So I wound up finding him because I looked up his brother's name and I found him that way. And I discovered the reason I couldn't find him. Not only was his name spelled wrong, but he was in the census as a female. So that's just one, and that's another good example of there are lots of mistakes. And this is true at Ancestry.com and also any other database you want to go to. You don't want to use these things as your sole proof of a fact. You always want to try to get as much evidence as possible for something. The reasons things get put down wrong, whoever was transcribing it might have made a mistake. This could be because the handwriting was bad. We'll see in a little bit. Some records that you can find online were based on handwritten records, and some of it is kind of rough. People might have spelled things wrong. Names get misspelled all the time. Just try asking someone whose last name was Connolly. There's a bunch of different ways to spell that, both correct and incorrect. So the person writing down the record might have written it down wrong. So that's especially true in census records, for example, where there's a language barrier, where the person taking down the census only spoke English and the person they were talking to only spoke something like Italian or German. So things can get wrong there. The other issue you might have is they only would generally talk to one person, would give all the information for the people in that household. So they might not have known. So for instance, if they had live-in servants or they had boarders, they might not have known exactly where that person was born, whether or not they were married, or how to spell their name. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And those are just a few of the reasons why there can be mistakes in these kinds of records. So this is just something to keep in mind. Like I said, try any possible way a name might have been spelled. Unfortunately, this makes it really tricky, particularly for Eastern European and Italian names. There's a bunch of different ways names like that can be misspelled. So you might have to try a few different things, but we're going to go over that in a little bit. If you do want more tips, more than we're able to go over here, we do have a section on our research guide for that you can check out later. But for now, we're going to take a peek at Ancestry.com. If our internet will cooperate with us. There we go. Okay, so this is the landing page. So you have a few different options. You can click on the begin searching button here and just search all of their collections. Or if there's a specific thing you're looking for down, you can pick from among the most widely used collections here. It's either census records, vital records, military records, immigration records. There's more down here, different things you can look for. But for today, we're just going to do main search. So we are and there we go. So loading a little slow today, I apologize. So we are going to search for my grandfather. So I always like to recommend folks when you are doing just a broad search, just to see what there is. Yeah, especially click on the show more options, and then this button here, match all terms exactly. And I will show you why in a little bit. So if you don't have it there, let's say I want to look for my grandfather, it was William Herman. If I don't have that checked, I am going to get over 100,000 results, most of which over 400,000 results, most of which are not my grandfather. So that is something to keep in mind. That's why I recommend this. So we're gonna go back and click on this match all terms. So now we're gonna search. We're still get a lot of results, but it won't be quite as much. So now we're down to over 40,000. So that's still a lot. That's too much. So but my grandfather had a common name. So in this case, you would want to add a little bit more information. So my grandfather lived in Rhode Island. He was from Rhode Island. So again, we're gonna that. So we'll just see that. So now we are down to 317 results. So that's a little bit more manageable. So I can tell you right now here, so a lot of these are not my grandfather, but the second one right here is. So when you're in Ancestry, you have a few different options when your results. You can just look through all the results as they're listed. And as you can see here, they're in a bunch of different collections, or what you can do is over here, click on Browse by Collection, so that'll refresh the page. Okay, so there is a handout. I'm gonna pop that in the chat for everyone who came in a little later. So now you can see all the different types of records. So let's say I wanted to look at his military records. So I'm gonna look at, let's see, let's just click on military. You can see all the different collections here, draft cards. So he was a POW, so this is accurate, but why I really like to look him up is, oh, this is new, I think, since the last time I looked. See, this is a great example. You want to keep checking back. You never know when might show up. Okay, this, I believe, is, I'm curious about this. Let me see. Okay, so the other thing, if there is an image, you always want to click on the image. If they have one of the original record, you'll get a lot more information that way. So let me see. So I don't think this is anything. Yeah, so this is William P. Herman. His middle initial was F. So this is not related to my grandfather, but let me get, okay. So what I really wanted to show you here was this one right here. I found this a couple of years ago and I just thought it was really interesting. So this is World War II Jewish servicemen's cards. First of all, the one thing I want to say, my grandfather was not Jewish. He was Catholic. So what happened here, what these would be, people would usually, they would see a list of names of casualties and prisoners of war in the newspaper, and they would say, oh, this person might be Jewish. I'm going to submit this information. So you can see here, the person who submitted the information was a Harry Hoffman. I'm not sure of who this person is. Most likely, again, he saw a list of POWs in the newspaper, saw my grandfather's name, and thought he might be Jewish. I'll submit his name. Again, he was not Jewish. That is actually what this hole punched here is. That means, oh yeah, he wasn't Jewish after all. But this is still can be useful, particularly if you stumble on this first, because this can tell you his next of kin, which in this case was my great-grandmother. And this is indeed where they lived. And it will even tell you what branch he served in and where they got this information. I'm not quite sure what this means, but so this can still be pretty useful. And I thought this was very interesting. So this is just one of the weird little things that you might be able to find in there. You never know what you can find in here. They just have so many collections. Another useful feature that they have is on the right-hand side of every results page, they will have suggested records. So what this is they'll look at your keywords in here and pull other things that they think might be the person you're looking for. So I don't know if this is my grandfather, but okay, so Janelle's asking, so we cannot access the website online even though we have a library online account. We need to be physically in the library. That is correct, but it doesn't have to be the main library. You can go to any BPL location. So if you live closer to a neighborhood branch, you can use it from there. As I said at the beginning, we did have remote access temporarily during COVID lockdown, but the vendor changed that. The nature of our license is that we can't allow people to use it remotely. So we're going to go back here. So let's see. So we're going to check on this just to see for the heck of it if this is my grandfather. Let's see, is this going to load? There we go. Okay, so this is Cranston. He was from Cranston. It's 1959. So we're going to take a look here. There we go. So if we remember his address, which was Haven Avenue, there we go. There, yep, that is my grandfather. Not sure why he's in here. No, this is actually would be my grandfather's father. All right. I misspoke there yet because my grandfather at this point lived in Massachusetts, but again, my grandfather was actually William Francis Herman III. And there was another one. My oldest uncle was also William Francis Herman. There's one picture of all four of them that when my uncle was a baby that was just delightful. So, but that's another thing to keep in mind where you might find it a little tricky to find things. If you, like me, have a lot of relatives with the same name, you need to consider things like years, how old they were, where they might have been, maybe to determine which one is which that you're actually looking at. So in this case, this is my great grandfather, not my grandfather. Okay, so our next database we're going to take a look at is something I like to call Ancestry Lite, and you're going to find out why right after I click on this. So this one is run by the same company that does Ancestry.com, and you can see it's very similar layout, even has some of the same graphics. The advantage of this one is you can use it from home. They don't have quite as much as Ancestry, but they do have some of the same things they do, and you can use it from home. So again, much like Ancestry, it's a searchable database, has millions of records that cover all over the world. One of their biggest collections, which is why it's particularly useful, they have city directories. They do have an emphasis on books, so family histories, local histories. They do have the census, and they do have military records. Plus, they also have some research guides. So they'll give you some instructions about how to best use it. Some of the differences the major ones are that you can't search multiple collections at once. We're going to take a look at that in a little bit. It doesn't have quite as much, and it does emphasize books. The other issue, though, is they do not have family trees. Ancestry.com does have family trees, so they do not have that in Heritage Quest. So if you're looking for something from someone's family tree, it will not come up here. I'm going to head on back. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. So we're going to head on back here so we can take a look at this. All right, so you can see here again, it looks very, very similar. They even have the same tiles, same pictures that they use, but you can't search all the collections. So if you click on begin searching here, we'll ask you to pick a collection. I'm not sure why it's organized like that, but that is how it is. You do have to pick what you want to look for. So for instance, again, if we wanted to search, let's say we want to look at the census. Over here, you can, let's see, okay, here we go. So let's say I'm interested in anyone named William Francis Herman who ever lived in Rhode Island. So I'm gonna actually try William Herman lived in Rhode Island, and let's see what we got. 1920. So I can tell you, my grandfather was born in 1924. So this is most likely his, yes, this is his father. So this is my great grandfather. So that's again, I said it's helpful to know other details other than a name if you're looking for multiple relatives with the same name. So this, yeah, yes, this is my great grandfather. So, and again, I would like to emphasize if you do see an original record, click on the picture to take a look at it. They don't transcribe everything. Usually, oh, they don't do it here. So sometimes they will highlight your results, but they are not doing that here. So we're gonna have to find him there. He is. So I'm not going to go too deeply into census records. I could go on at great length, but what I can tell you is they will tell you how they're related to the head of household. So this, my great grandfather was living with his great aunt, I guess. So that was his mother's aunt, I believe. And I can tell you, the ages and occupations of everyone who lived there, where they were from, and their occupations and stuff like that. So this is, again, so census records are pretty easy to find all over the place, but just wanted to show you this as so I can show you the results are going to be very similar, but you do have to select a collection, which is a little weird, but that's how they are set up. All right, so the next one is one fortunately, you can only access through the central library, which is American Ancestors. This is a database that is run by the New England Historic Genealogical Society, which is located not far from where I am now on Newberry Street. The building itself is closed for renovations, but they are still a resource you can use, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So what this is a collection of databases and other resources produced by the New England Historic Genealogical Society. So you'll see there's a little bit of overlap with the other databases we've talked about, but they do have some resources that no other place has. They will have vital records, military records, tax lists, voter lists, some immigration records. They will have court records, but one of the best parts of their collections is they will have their indexed periodicals and their publications. For instance, they have produced there's the New England Historic Genealogical Register, which is the oldest continuously running genealogy journal in the country. They have every single issue scanned and searchable in this database. Oops. Okay, so this, again, you have to be at the central library only. The issue with this one is they do offer the ability to use it in multiple places, but it is incredibly expensive, and we could only afford to pay for one license to use at the central library. So that's why you can only get it there. So, but even though it is very expensive and you can only use the whole thing with a paid subscription, they do have a lot of free resources that you can use with a free registration called a guest account. So we're going to take a look at those in a little bit. Some of the free resources they have subject guides that were written by professional genealogists that work with them. They have some archived webinars on a lot of different topics in genealogy and other things that you might find interesting. And these are a few of the free databases. The one that I usually, a couple of the biggest ones are the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston records. This is a project they're working on with the Archdiocese of Boston, where they were digitizing and transcribing their records. Right now, they cover from 1789 to 1920. You can only access for the free account, you can only access the images. You won't be able to search it. If you try to do a search, it'll tell you need to pay for an account. So we are going to, so this is I put this link in here so you can read more about the project. Oh, and they need to fix that link. All right, so if you do have a free account, you would log in up in the right-hand corner over here. Okay, so we're gonna log in to my account here so we can take a look at everything. There we go, that is still being slow. Oh, Okay. All right. So yes, I am logged in. Okay. So we're going to look at first, we're going to look. Okay, so Meredith is asking to access American Ancestry to the Central Library. Does one need to be on a BPL computer, or can one access from within BPL's on one's own laptop? That is a great question. Yes, you can use your own laptop. Basically, you just need to be logged on to our Wi-Fi at the Central Library in order to use this one. And for all of our other databases, so for instance, for Ancestry.com, if you come into any of our locations, you can use your laptop, your tablet, your phone, whatever you want. You just have to be logged on to our Wi-Fi. And then, so you don't if you don't have to use one of our computers to do that. All right, so I'm gonna look under tools here. So these are some of the free resources. You can see the video library. Here you can see they have lots of events. A lot of their events you do have to pay for them, but they do have a lot of events that are free and that they upload to their site. So for instance, they recently did a webinar on tracing enslaved ancestors. So no, someone's asking, do you have to join Ancestry? If you're just using our subscription through us, you don't have to join. So there is a difference between, I probably should have explained this before, but with Ancestry.com, there are basically two different Ancestry.coms. So the library edition, which is what we have, which you access through us. And then there's the one that individual subscribers can get to. And that is the one where you can, if you want to build a family tree and save records, you would have to use the individual subscription. You can't build a family tree through our subscription. But if you just want to do some research at the library, you don't have to join. You're using our subscription to that. So if you don't want to join, you don't have to. Getting back here, you can see just some of the webinars that the NAHGS has been doing lately. Going back here, why I really wanted to show you this is the research guides. So they have lots and lots of research guides that you can look at that will help you do different things. You can get some guidance on how to do. So Michelle's asking, does the library edition of Ancestry include international records? I do not know that. I will go back to that later. We will circle back to that one. So they have a bunch of different things. They have guides for different aspects of using the website, just basic genealogy thing, but then they also have guides if you're researching a specific heritage. So they have Acadian, African American. If you're looking for Catholic records, Chinese American ancestry, if you want to learn about how to do DNA testing, it is very vast. They have lots and lots of guides. So for instance, if you're looking for Native peoples of New England, you can click on this. And they all pretty much laid out the same way. So yes, Teresa's correct. They do have curricula that educators can access. Those are among the free ones. So we don't really service that part of it. So we're not really going to go too much into that. But that if you are a teacher and you want to do that, that is something else they can help you with. So the research guides are all pretty much laid out the same way. They will have an introduction. If they have any webinars, they will have a link to that. And they will have links to resources, and they'll have some basic information, different records that you can look at, names of different people, and links to their resources, links to other resources, a bibliography. So this is pretty much how all of these lovely research guides look. They are free, but like I said, you do have to register for an account to look at them, but it's really easy, and it just means you'll get some email from them now and then. Okay, so let's see. All right, so this is one of the more recent ones we have, which is My Heritage Library Edition. So this is very much like what I was talking about with Ancestry.com. This one has two different sites. There's the library subscription and there's a private subscription. If you get your own, you can build a family tree, save records to it, and do all that fun stuff. But if you're using our subscription, you can't do any of that. You can just look for records. So like everything else, it's a searchable collection of different genealogy collections and different types of records. Including digitized historical documents, including photos and newspapers, and a lot of really other interesting things. You can get to it through our website. So this one, you have multiple options. You can either search all, like Ancestry.com, you can search all collections at once or just pick one to look at. The search functions are a little wonky. We're going to take a look at that, but basically you can't do like Ancestry and just match all options exactly. With one button, you have to click on it for everything. Keyword search is incredibly wonky. It doesn't really work, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. So we usually recommend, we do have some tips for how to get around that. And okay, so okay, yeah, so yes, Kevin, I believe is correct. Ancestry, they do have international records, but it doesn't have, I think the World Traveler thing is what you might be referring to. I don't believe that's included with ours. Those are, I believe those are for just for individual subscribers. So there we go. So I believe our subscription is just the basic, what is available minus family trees. We also don't have full free or newspapers.com through our subscription. As again, these things are very expensive. Okay, so we're going to show you this too. So again, the print option is a little wonky. It's really just it's a little tricky to use, but there is a lot of really great stuff there if you're willing to work with it. And this one you can access from home with your BPL card. And if you're not, and if you don't live in the area, you can, in Massachusetts, you can check with your local library to see what they have, see if they have it. Why we originally subscribed to it is we have a lot of newspapers here that they scanned. So you can see a lot of the newspapers from Boston are scanned from our collection. See if I can get that working. There, yeah, so you can, oh, there we go. So Massachusetts newspapers, 1704, 1974, the bulk of this is from us. They scanned our collection, and that is why we have them. I'm just gonna show you the main search. So you can see here, you can search by collection. So Meredith's asking, what's the difference between My Heritage Edition and Ancestry Library Edition? The main difference is, well, besides them being run by two different companies, that My Heritage has a really large collection of newspapers. Ancestry.com has split their newspaper collection off into another database that they want you to pay for called newspapers.com. So you'd have to buy a package in order to search the newspapers they have. My Heritage newspapers are just part of the regular collection. So that's why we like this one, even though it's a little tricky to use. So that is the main difference. So Kate's asking, do you need to be a resident of Massachusetts to get a BPL library card? Yes, you do. You need to either live, work, go to school, or own property in Massachusetts to get one of our cards. Like I said, if you don't live in Massachusetts, check with your local library and they might have some of these resources. So again, so I'm going to switch it up a bit and look for someone on my dad's side. So I'm going to look for my great-great-grandfather. And see what comes up. So you can see here on the left-hand side, it'll tell you all the different collections it searched and how many results are in each. But I really came here to show you the newspapers. So we're going to click on that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I may or may not be related to some of these folks. There's a ton of Wheelers, but I can tell you, these are not my great-grandfather because he died during the Civil War. So we're going to see. We're going to limit it over here and click on Massachusetts newspapers. That's one of the little quirks of it. If you try to search for a specific location and that won't work, the easier way to do it is just limiting it over here. Okay, so let's say I want to narrow it down by dates because they can tell you none of these are him. So we're going to go publication year. So let's say I want to see if his obituary is in here. I know he died in 1863, so I'm going to pick that year. Yes, I just taught this class a few weeks ago, so you can see this is the one I was showing folks. So this is from the Boston Post that was published August 19th, 1863. So we're going to take a look at that. Okay, so usually what they will do is highlight the result and just kind of zoom the page over to it. We might still have to zoom it in a little bit more. There we go. So what this is a list of invalid soldiers from New Orleans. So this is basically exactly what it sounds like. My great-great-grandfather was, his unit was in New Orleans and a lot of them got sick. So that was what happened to him. He actually died of illness, but fortunately for him, unlike a lot of other men who served in that war, he actually was able to make it home before he passed away. So he was fortunate he was able to have his family with him. Died. A lot of them did not. So this is just one thing that can tell you. I do teach another class about using newspapers, but I will just say here, newspapers are an excellent resource, and particularly even if you are looking for someone in the military, because a lot, especially during the Civil War, and I know they also did this in World War I and World War II, they would have information about the regiments that were raised in that location. They'll tell you where they were going to, who got hurt, who got killed, who got sick, who was coming back, what battles they were involved in, where they were going, and all that. So why this is a list like this can be useful. If you don't know this information already, this will tell you where he was. So this is for, so this actually doesn't say. So I can tell you this was there we go. So he was in the 49th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry. That's what that is right here. And he was in Company D. So that right there, that can give you information to go ask, look for other military records if that's the sort of thing that you're looking for. Okay, so all right, there was one more thing I forgot. So if you do want to save the record, this one, unfortunately, if you're using our subscription, you won't be able to save the record to a profile. You will have to download it and do it that way. The way I recommend to do it is using, I don't know, it's a little hard to see, but there in the upper right-hand corner of every result is a white box with some black carrots in it. So you click on that, and that's to make it full screen. Once you get to full screen, what you can do is click on the little printer icon right here. And eventually it will load. It does sometimes drag a little bit. There we go. So you can print it if you want to print that, or you can save it. So in that case, you click on where it says destination, click save as PDF. And then go ahead and save it. The downside with that is it'll be the entire page. It won't let you save a snippet of it, so you'll kind of have to remember where it is when you go to look at it again. But that is the best way that we have found here of saving records from this if you're using our subscription. All right, so segue nicely into newspapers. So as I was just talking about, newspapers are an excellent resource for genealogy research, and the BPL has lots and lots of newspaper databases. We're just going to look at a couple of them here. So one that I really, these are all, you can access these from home. And with ProQuest historical newspapers, if you're joining us from somewhere else, chances are your library has some kind of subscription to ProQuest. It's one of the bigger newspaper databases that are available at libraries. So we're going to first take a look at 19th century US newspapers. Let me close some tabs here to try to speed things up. There we go. All right, so this is exactly what it sounds like. It has newspapers from the US from the 19th century. They do have several newspapers covering Boston, and the big one being the Boston Daily Advertiser, which was one of the bigger newspapers at that time. So I always recommend you go into advanced search, and then you can scroll down here and limit it. So let's say I want to, first of all, I want to type in my search terms. Let's say I want to find information about, just let's do my great-great-grandfather again. And I do always recommend, unless the person has a really uncommon name, that you put quotes around the person's name, because otherwise it's going to look for all the Hoseas and all the Wheelers. And like I said, there's a lot of Wheelers. In the 19th century, there were a lot of Hoseas running around. So definitely use quotes around the names, especially if it's a fairly common name. So let's say I want to, I can limit it by Massachusetts. Go. And how about, and I would like to limit it by year. Once again, I'm going to see if Okay, so 1863, we're gonna see if there's anything in here. And there isn't, so maybe I put in too much information. So I'm gonna click here and go to revise search. Don't use the back button because that will just kind of erase everything you typed in. Always click on refine search, revise search. Most databases will have something like that. The back button using the back button just causes problems. So let's say all dates. Let me just see. I know I'm related to a few Hosea Wheelers, so let's see if any of them are here. And there's nothing. Okay, so he was probably a bad example. So just because I want to be able to find something in here, I'm going to try my other favorite example, John Fitzgerald, and I'm going to limit it to Boston. So for those of you who know Boston history, you'll know that, or for those of you who don't know Boston history, John Fitzgerald was the mayor of Boston, also a congressperson, and the maternal grandfather of President John Kennedy. So why I really like this database is right over here on the left-hand side, when you get on your results page, they have keyword preview. So this will show you a snippet of your results so you can tell, is this actually the person I'm looking for? So I can tell you right now, this is not the person I'm looking for because this is a person by that name who died at age 93 in 1835, and this is before our John Fitzgerald was even born. So that is not him. That's really what I want to show you this. I just think that's a wonderful resource so you don't have to go into the result and keep going back and forth trying to figure out if it's anything you actually want to look at. Okay, so let's take a look at this one, affairs in and about the city. Okay, so this is about an explosion in Malden. So again, this is not the guy we're looking at, but let's pretend it is. So we're going to take a look at this one. So you click on the title. Okay, so the trick about this one is it'll come up really, really tiny. Your result is still highlighted, but you have to zoom in if you want to be able to read it at all. There we go. So that's a tricky thing about this one. And then see here, I always find it fascinating looking through sections of the newspaper like this from this time period because it's really interesting what they included. There'll be things about so-and-so visited so-and-so for tea, so-and-so had a party, so-and-so was going to Paris for the summer or whatever. I just find it fascinating. So that's 19th century US newspapers in a nutshell. So let's see back here, there we go. So another good one that we have is newspaper archive. So why I personally like this one, it has newspapers from where I'm from, which is Berkshire County. So I can actually search people who lived there. So like I said, I always go to advanced search. So let's say I want to look for, say I want to try Hosea Wheeler again. So I'm going to type his name over here. So down here, we want to narrow it by location. So we're going to go US. So this one actually, another reason why this was cool, this actually has coverage beyond Massachusetts. It has most of the Northeast. So we're going to pick Massachusetts and let's say we're going to look for Pittsfield because that's where he lived. Let's see what comes up. Okay, 70 records. So, okay. So again, this is a little bit too much and more than what I was looking for. So what I'm going to do is click on revise. Remember, never push the back button when you need to change your search. Although this one sometimes resets it anyway. Go back to Pittsfield and let's say I want to narrow it by year. So let's do 1863. I'm going to click on search again. Oh, okay. So I missed something up there. So let's do a range. So we're going to do, let's say 1861 to, let's do to 1860. Let's see. Okay, so let's leave it on just Massachusetts. There we go. Okay, so all right, so there we go. Okay, so I had the wrong year. So if you're not finding any results, go back and fiddle with your search, maybe increase the time period you're looking at or the date you're looking at. If you put too much information in these, you probably won't find anything. The general idea is when you're doing any kind of research is to start off as broadly as possible and then kind of narrow yourself down. All right, so first I'm going to look at my hometown newspaper and let's see what this is. So this is September 25th, 1862. So with these, it'll open it up in a new window. The tricky thing with this one, it is a very high quality image, so it can sometimes take a long time to load. We got lucky here. So we're going to zoom in a bit. We'll always want you to zoom in. And here we go. So this is, so let's scroll up to the top here and see if we can figure out what this is. Okay, so these are people who were training at Camp Briggs. So that was in Western Massachusetts. That's in Berkshire County, where people who were joining regiments there, that's where they were getting their training. So down here we can see a list of privates. So these are people who enlisted from West Stockbridge, which is where my great-great-grandfather was from. See here, and there he is, Hosea Wheeler. I'm not related to this Wheeler, as far as I know. If I am, it's very, very distantly. Like I said, there's a lot of Wheelers running around, and there were a lot of Wheelers in Berkshire County back then. So this could also be interesting, so you can see who exactly joined up, where they were from, and this can, again, help you find more information about them. Yeah, so all right, so if we go back, let's see what the Boston Post had. There we go. And again, like the other things, it should highlight the results. It might sometimes be a little wonky and you might have to go looking for it. Okay, and this is, okay, so this is the same list that we already saw over in the other place, but in a different newspaper. It's pretty much the same list. So this is when he and a bunch of other people in his unit were coming back from New Orleans due to illness. All right, so let's see. So Prochrist historical newspapers, the four that we have for this is the Boston Globe, the New York Times, the Irish Times, and the Jewish Advocate. That's all we have. There is a subscription to this database. You can get everything they have. We do not have that. These are the four we have. So we're going to take a look at the Boston Globe. This is probably the database, the newspaper database we have that gets the most use, both from the public and from staff. It gets used quite a bit. So again, we're going to go into advanced search. I always recommend advanced search. So as this is the Boston newspaper, we'll probably find more about Mr. Fitzgerald. So let's try searching for him again. So what I'm going to do is limit it a little bit. You can limit it down here by publication date. So let's do a specific range. Let's just say 1900 to 1930 and see what comes up. So there are going to be a lot of results because there was a lot of John Fitzgeralds running around. Okay, so you can even see here, they're even saying explicitly that this John Fitzgerald was not related to the Mary. They just had the same name. But this, I can tell you, this result right here is about the guy we're looking for. So we're going to take a look at that. So one of the things he was known for was just, there was a song he liked to sing called Sweet Adeline. That was one of the things that he liked to do for fun. So that's one of the things he was known for. So here we go. So this is just an interesting little thing. He was defending the song because he really liked it. So you can find all sorts of interesting things about people in the newspapers outside of obituaries, which is what a lot of folks use them for, but you can find this just fun little tidbit about someone. So let's see. Okay. So in all of these, they're going to look exactly the same because it is all the same database. So if you go to any of these, they will look pretty much the same. And again, all of these you can use from home with your BPL card, and you're joining us from elsewhere, you can probably access at least a couple of these from your local library. So now we're going to look at some completely free resources that you do not need a library card to access. So the big one here that I like to promote are the research guides, in particular the genealogy research guide. So we recently split this one up into 4 different guides. It used to be one massive guide. You can see here, these are all the things that cover it. So the first one here, this will have So this will have just information about our programming and just a very basic brief introduction about how to get started. I do have sprinkled throughout links to classes on various topics related to the guides, so you can look through these. The ones that most folks will use will most likely be the records and resources page, but we also have, if you're interested in things like news about genealogy, blogs or podcasts or TV shows, you can look at that here. And under special topics, you can see we have pages on researching your adopted ancestors, doing DNA testing, female ancestors, names, and different heritage. But most people will be using this one, which is records and resources. So what we will have here is little guides about what these different types of records are, how to access them at the BPL and elsewhere. So for instance, let's say you wanted to look at vital records. So again, that's birth, death, and marriage records. Right here, again, we do focus more in Massachusetts here because we are in Massachusetts, but this can still be useful for other folks. So what we will tell you here is what they are. And in Massachusetts, it'll tell you more information about how to get them here, where to access them, how to access them, other places that will have them. I do have some links to other states here and other places where you can get the same information. So this will just, the nature of this guide is just to offer you a quick look at what these things are, where you can get them, and how to use them. So we do try to keep it current. However, I'm the only one doing it right now. So if you do spot a broken link somewhere in here, please do let me know and I will fix it. So that's the genealogy guide. So we're not going to look at all of these because we're running it's almost 7 o'clock. So we're not going to look at all of these, but most of these guides are pretty much the same thing. They will tell you what different things are and how to access materials. One of the big ones we use with genealogy are the Boston lists of residents. So again, it's exactly what it sounds like. This is a guide put together by one of my coworkers. So the Boston list of residents is drawn largely from voter registration rolls, so it will not have women before 1921. So we're just going to pick one randomly so you can see what they look like. We do have digitized up through 1974. We do a new set every year. So next year we will be putting up 1975. So let's just say, look at this one. So this is 1931. And all of these are scanned and freely available in the Internet Archive. So if you use the right Google search terms, you can be able to find them that way as well. Make this window a little bit bigger. There we go. So these are organized by ward and precinct, and then they are organized alphabetically by street name, then numerically by street number, and then alphabetically by last name. So one of the reasons I really like this as a resource is, let me make this a little bit bigger. Of course, you're going to do that. There we go. Is up in the right-hand column, it'll tell you where they lived the year before. So that way you can kind of go back in time and figure out where they were, even if they were from another place. You can see here at 10 Border Street, there were a bunch of people here who were from other places. So we have a couple from New York, one person from South America, one from Illinois, actually a couple people from South America. So chances are so they're all seamen, they're all sailors. So this was most likely a boarding house that catered to sailors who probably didn't live here that long. Still, so basically what it'll have their name, where they lived, their occupation, and their age. Depending on the year, you might also get a symbol that indicates they were a recent veteran of World War I think they did it for. I'm not sure if they did it for World War II. When they start including women, for some reason, they decide to put daggers next to their names. Not quite sure why they did that. You can see here how old everyone is, where they were. And it'll even, if they were in Boston the previous year, it'll actually give you the street address where they were. So you can hop back to that one and then keep going back and back and back. That's one of the main reasons why we like that. Okay, so let's keep on going. So So there are also several websites, again, that are for free online that have content from the BPL. One of the more interesting ones probably is the Boston TV News Digital Library. Try to close some of these tabs. Here we go. So this has from our collection, our WHDH film collection. It is not the if you live in Boston, it's not the WHDH that's around now. It was a previous station that had that call sign, so it's a different station. We do not have everything, every part of that collection in here. It is kind of limited. You can see here, we have lots more film that just hasn't been digitized. We don't currently have a process to digitize on demand, but there is some interesting stuff in here. So if we want to say, just browse a little bit. So let's say we wanted to look for, let's just type in Kennedy and see what comes up. You can see here, a lot of it is going to be Ted Kennedy because he was a senator for the United States, for a US senator from Massachusetts for a very long time. So putting Kennedy here, they're mostly going to be Ted Kennedy and then also his wife, it looks like, Kennedy Library. So what these are digitized news clips. I'm not going to do it right now because it's a little runway too slow, but you can click on it and then watch the clip. So if you have a relative or someone who was involved in an event that was covered by the news, there's a chance you might find them in there. One of the bigger resources that we have is Digital Commonwealth. So this is a resource that has contributions from libraries and other institutions from all over the state. We're just going to look quick here. So these are some of our collections. We have scanned some of our newspapers ourselves, and we have put them in here. So we have some newspapers, and we have poster collections. We have our anti-slavery collection, and we have the main reason I like it is the Boston Pictorial Archive. So this one can be useful if you are researching someone who lived in Boston and you're trying to get a picture of their house or a business they owned. You can try looking for it there. We can't guarantee that it'll be there, but you never know. So for instance, I'm just going to type in Boylston Street, which is where the library is located, and let's see what comes up. So there's quite a bit. So I like looking through these. So they're a good way to see what has changed since then. Like, what did it look like? So, and also this is our previous location. That building no longer exists. That is actually where Emerson College is now. Okay, so I think we're running a little long here. So that's just one place you can go to look at a bunch of material that comes from us and from other libraries. The HathiTrust Digital Library is pretty similar. It has a bunch of documents and photos and stuff like that. We are not a member institution, though. Why we have a link to it here is there's a lot of books, government document books, a lot of books produced by the state of Massachusetts and the city of Boston. So it can be pretty handy if that's the sort of thing that you're looking for. Running a little long, so I'm going to be able to look at all of these. So the Internet Archive, a lot of you probably know what that is. We have a landing page there, so we have a good collection there. And again, if you do a Google search, the right Google search, you can get stuff on here. So that will include things like city directories, a list of residents from Boston and from other parts of the country and the state. You can also do keyword searches in here. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. All right, so we are going to, okay, let's see, what do I want to show you? Okay, so the main thing I want to show you here is Cindy's list. So for those of you who are old enough to remember what Yahoo used to look like, how it was a directory with different categories of things, that's basically what this is, but for genealogy. And it is run by one person named Cindy. She is lovely. So it is just different categories. So let's, for instance, you wanted to look at adoption. So you click on there. Let's say you want to look at orphan, oops, that's not what I meant. So let's say you want to look at general resources. So this will be a list of links to different places online that might be able to help you. Like I said, it is done by one person, so there might be some broken links in there. All right, so the one we're going to look at here. So Family Search is probably the biggest free genealogy resource. They do require you that you register for an account, but it is completely free. They used to have different libraries, different research centers all over the country, but shortly before COVID, they decided to pivot and they started scanning everything in their collections. I don't think they're done yet, but it is an ongoing project. So a lot of their stuff is online. One of the main collections that we use here, they are vital records from Massachusetts. But the other great thing they have in here are census records. So if you don't have a library card and your library doesn't have access to any of the other databases we've talked about, you can get census records and other things like that here, completely free. The other thing I will say is for some reason, their images of the census are the most high quality, clearest images I've seen. They must have had a better scanning equipment. The other good thing about them is they also have a lot of guides. So they'll have different resources for how to use different things, how to find records. They'll have links to different resources that they have and resources that other people have. Basically, if Wikipedia were about genealogy and having accurate information. All right, so that's the end of our slides. We do have a few minutes left for questions. So I'm going to go back and see anything I missed. If you have any questions, feel free to pop it into the chat. If you think of something after we're done, you can always send us an email. You can call us or use the live chat. So let's go back and see if I missed anything. Okay, so P. Louie was asking, I am part Native American. I had a hard time finding anything at the Central Library some time ago. Has that changed? Sadly, no, not really. That's kind of a hard area to research. So I do have in my guide, in my genealogy guide, I do have a section. Let me see if I can. Okay, let's X out of here. Okay, there we go. So I do have in my research guide a section on doing genealogy research for Native American. Just we don't have a lot of resources ourselves. Depending on what tribe you're looking at, you may need to contact a different library or a different location. It's gonna come up for me. Oh, there we go. Okay, so once I get this, I will pop in a link in the chat for you once this comes up for me. So this would be in special topics and researching a specific heritage and Native American. So I have had some guest speakers on this topic because this is not one of my areas of expertise. There we go. So that's a link to that. So it's a little tricky doing that kind of research. There are some records that may not be available. The main records that most folks use were produced by the federal government, which for obvious reasons can be a little problematic at times. But that's basically what we have. So you can poke through here. Mostly what the BPL is going to have are the government records. So, census rolls, the Dawes rolls, we'll have those on microfilm. We have some books, but that's largely what we're going to have. Okay, let's see. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Okay, so Randall mentioned, so MyHeritage has a new new newspaper site. So they do, however, that's not part of our subscription. That's something that they want you to pay extra for. So I haven't had a chance to use it, but from what I hear, it's really great. Some of the articles I was reading about it indicate that it's really easy to search, a little easier than their main database. So if you get a chance to use that, definitely try that out. They might have a free trial that you can use. So Sandra's asking about, does the BPL have historic maps of Boston covering the 18th and 19th centuries? And I believe someone already posted a link in here to the Leventhal Map Center. So that would be the answer. So you can just go there. I think this will get you over there. There we go. Yeah, leventhalmap.org. So yes, they have a huge collection. They've digitized quite a bit of their collection, not everything though. And also, for those of you who are familiar with the HVAC issues we're having, they are one of the few places in the building that has air conditioning. So if you do come in and you need to cool down, they're a wonderful place to stop at. Okay. Okay, so Thomas is asking how to organize all of the info. So that really, that's really a personal preference thing. I definitely recommend that you do organize it somehow, whether that's writing things down in a notebook or printing everything out and having a binder or using one of the many different options for software that are available. It's really up to what you're comfortable with. The one thing I do say is write down citations for every single source you find information from. So write down what the name of the resource is, the date that you got it, if there's a specific page number or date or volume issue, write that down. It makes it much easier for people like me who work at a library to be able to find it for you again if you need to look back at it. I've lost track of how many times we've had folks come in saying, I looked at this book 20 years ago here, I want to look at it again. I don't remember what it was called or where it was or really what it was about. That happens quite a bit. The joke that we have in like librarian circles is people will say, oh, it was red. So it's especially funny for us because things that we had bound ourselves for a long time, it was red covers. So a lot of our books are red. So really just organize it at all. That would be my recommendation. Just do it however, whatever way you're comfortable with, what works best for you. I will say though, have backups of everything, especially if you're doing electronic resources, have backups, like have multiple backups just in case your computer might crash, you might have an accident and it might destroy your computer, the website might go down. Always back everything up. Okay, so Alan is asking, what is the best resource for Plymouth early records Mayflower descendants? So let's see. So American Ancestors is actually really good with that. They have a fair amount of stuff covering the Mayflower. It really kind of depends on what you're looking for there. The main thing that we have there, we call them the silver books that were done by, I believe it was the Mayflower Society. Yeah, the silver books. They're so called because the covers were silver. So that is why they're called the silver books. So yeah, that's the General Society of Mayflower Descendants. So depending on what you're looking for, you might want to reach out to them. But I can tell you, we do here have a set of the silver books. A lot of the bigger public libraries, any library of that has a strong genealogy collection, they will probably have the silver books, particularly if they're in New England. So basically, these books would focus on one person, and there might be multiple volumes. I think they only did 5th generation, so it won't give you a complete thing, but that could at least get you started. So I would recommend if you can live in the area, you can come use ours or check with your local library to see who has them. So that's what I would start with for them. Okay. Okay. All right, let me see. Oh, there we go. So we have a tip from Kevin. If you use Excel, you can create a workbook for a given ancestral name with each spreadsheet covering a single ancestor and organize all known data for that person by date. A Google search should yield some instructions on how to do so. That's great. I do know a lot of people who do use Excel. Like I said, it's whatever is easiest for you to use. You don't necessarily need to use some big complicated organizational scheme just because some other people are using it. Really, the key is what will work for you. And even like I said, if that's just writing things down in a composition book, if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. Okay. All right, so it looks like that's about it. So, like I said, I'll make it back here. So if any of you think of anything once we log off, you can send us an email to ask@bpl.org. You can also call us on the phone. Our phone lines are open from 9 to 5. I will say that we only have one person answering the phone. She is lovely, but she gets very busy. So if she doesn't answer, it's because she's on another call. So if no one answers, leave a message with your name, number, and your question. someone will get back to you. It might take us a couple days because we got a lot of phone calls, but someone will call you back. And also, we have a live chat that runs from Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you can also check that out. So just a few reminders for anyone who came in a little late. This class was recorded. I will be sending a link to everyone to the recording once it is ready, which will hopefully be next week. And also tomorrow, I'll be sending everyone a follow-up email with a link to the handout, also a link to my slides here that you saw tonight, and also to the chat transcript. So if you missed anything on screen, don't worry, you will be able to get it. Also, if you have any questions about anything specifically I talked about, you can send me an email. My email address is on the handout. So once again, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you have a good night. And if you live in the Boston area, stay cool.